Hey, everybody.
Hey,
welcome
y'all.
back to another fantastic edition of the show. Thank you for rocking with us once again. We are glad to have your ears, and if you're watching on YouTube, your eyes on another episode of the His and Her Money Show. We know you could be anywhere else in the world, but you're here with us. So we just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
If you hear anything that you love, that you think your people need to hear, then be a good friend and share this episode in your IG stories and tag us at His and Her Money so we can say thank you and reshare it and let everybody know that the His and Her Money Show is the place to be. And if you haven't done so, leave us a review. We love to hear your feedback. It helps us to stay motivated and in the game to make sure that we continue to bring you this content over and over and over again. We are, 7 years strong? 7 years strong in the podcast space. We some OG podcasters.
I guess.
Okay,
Yeah.
we some OGs in this thing. So we love reading your reviews. We got like 1,100 so far. So keep them coming, guys.
And we do read them. So thank you guys so much for all of the love.
And as always, we're excited about today's episode.
Very much so.
Because we don't bring no whack episodes. We make sure that y'all get the good stuff. We make sure we bring you great guests that got great insight to help you live a great life. And today's episode is no different. We're going to be talking about marriage and all the stuff that comes with that,
family,
business,
faith,
money,
all of
children,
that. Yeah.
faith, all of the above. And we have some special guests on the line to share their story, to share their journey, to help you as you create your story and a journey of your own. We're going to be talking with Kaelin and Kyrah Edwards. They have a magnificent YouTube presence. They just wrote an awesome new book, and they are going to share their insight with you right here and right now. So buckle up and get ready.
Hey guys, welcome to the show.
Hi.
Hey.
Thank you so much for having us.
I feel like I made it. Like I was so excited to be
you
here.
guys, man.
Yes, we're so excited.
We are
too.
excited. We've been checking you guys out, and you
Beautiful
guys are
family.
doing the doggone thing
Beautiful
in so
family.
many different areas and facets. And we're excited to be able to learn from you both and some of the lessons that you've learned in your journey thus far. But for people that are being introduced to you for the very first time right here and right now, can you just say hello to everybody that's tuned in and let them know what you're all about?
So, hey everyone, my name is Kaelin Edwards,
And I'm Kyrah.
and we are the Edwards family on YouTube, or actually not anymore. We're back to Kaelin and Kyrah on YouTube. We're a YouTube family that just documents and shares these coming of age moments going from being young teenagers to young adults. We talk about and share young marriage, and we talk about everything that goes into that, even the things that we didn't expect to necessarily get into. So it's been really fun growing on YouTube with our entire audience over the past 5 or 6 years. But yeah, we've just been growing together.
Yeah, I guess just a little background on us specifically. We met when we were like 12 years old and dated for a short time, and then went off to separate high schools and didn't really speak, and kind of rekindled our friendship at 16 and started dating, got married at 19, and now we're going on 5 years of marriage. And we have 2 little boys, Carter and Kaiser. Carter's 3 and Kaiser is 1.5.
Now, somebody probably just pulled off the road and said, wait. Did she say 19?
19.
Did she say they got married at 19? So
We
tried.
We tried to get married at 18, but, the financials weren't really in place, so we had to wait an extra year.
Some of y'all that's from the small towns, y'all know how it is. I mean, it's boring out there, ain't much to do, so he would just get married and start having kids. So that's kind of the life that we were living. But that's kind of what led us into doing YouTube. It was really not much to do where we were from, and Kyrah and I had met each other at a very young age and have been friends for a super long time, and we were just running out of things to do. I mean, there's only so many times you could drive out in the middle of the country and just smell the cows and look at the hills. So we just started doing YouTube and started doing fun stuff on there, and some of our videos took off, and we started to build this audience of people that were around the same age of us, that were also in the same time period of life where they're leaving high school and going off to college. And we just started to have a lot of the same shared experiences, started realizing a lot of the themes that were going on in our life were also going on in other people's life. And it was just really cool to have a community of people there that were going through the same thing as us, as we all, strive to grow together.
So you guys just recently released a new book. If you could tell everybody the name of the book and what was the gist behind you guys writing this book?
Yes, so the book is called This Kind of Love, And funny backstory, the original book was actually going to be kind of a book about saving yourself till marriage, celibacy, and how we were able to accomplish that. And then we kind of started writing and realized, oh, well, we didn't really accomplish that. I mean, maybe if you kind of like, skirt the line or split the middle a little bit, and we just realized, maybe that's not the book we should write. Maybe that book we need to save. Somebody else can write that book on celibacy and how to save yourself for marriage. And as we started writing, we just realized, we have a lot of experiences that we know our audience has experienced as well. I mean, in our DMs all the time, oh my gosh, you guys, help me with this. Tell me about in-laws, your first year of marriage, how you were learning to communicate. And we were just like, you know what, we think that this book will better serve our community.
Right. We didn't want to write a book. I mean, initially we wanted to write this book that was this declaration, we got it all together. And especially because we did wait until marriage within our relationship, we're just like, okay, we can talk about celibacy and abstinence. But I mean, I have a past. I know Kyrah doesn't, but she met me and, in our relationship, we were, living pure. But before then, I got that past. So if we were going to be honest, I mean, we got to, be fully upfront. And we realized we couldn't write that book. So we said, okay, a lot of people look at us on YouTube as this relationship goal of a couple. And it's kind of like this pedestal that we didn't necessarily want to put ourselves on, but instead we want to kind of step down and humanize ourselves and let people know, hey, I know it kind of looks all sweet and the Instagram pictures, they look nice, and the YouTube videos you see, they look good. But here's actually what's going on behind the scenes of all these quote unquote relationship goals of couples. This is what we're really dealing with. These are the things that God has really taken us through. And we couldn't do that and lie to people. We couldn't do that and, try and make ourselves these idols that the world wants us to be. Instead, we're just like, okay, we're on the stage right now. Let's go ahead and step down. Let's be in the place where we need to be, which is among everybody else. And let's point to Jesus and let's see the things that he's brought us through and the things that he's been teaching us. So really, that's what this book is about. It's about us dating at a young age and going through all the trials and tribulations that we went through, dealing with in-laws and just wondering how young marriage is going to be. And then it goes into these young marriage years and the themes and the things that we went through during that time, having a baby at a young age. And this is a little shameless plug to you guys, but wondering whether or not we should pay off our house or if we should save and invest and try and get that interest. Spoiler alert, and this is his and her money exclusive. We actually did pay off our house thanks to some info from you guys. So just shameless plug there. But yeah, it's just been, it's really us documenting and chronicling this journey of growth. But it's not just our story. I think it's the story of a lot of young people that are just trying to figure out, who are we? What are we trying to do? What am I called to? How do I find my purpose? And how do I stick to that and steward that well? So we're really excited for what this book should do for our generation.
How did you all know that y'all were ready to get married? Because I know some 20, 30, 40-year-olds that still like, I don't know if I'm ready for marriage. But y'all knew at 18, got married at 19. What went into your mindset to know that, one, I want to do this, and two, we can do this?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it was just the small town vibes or what, but I was like, I think that the boy that grew up right down the street from me, I think that this is probably the one for me. And I know at the time, a lot of my friends were thinking about going off to college and they were going to meet new boys and in new cities and new towns. And I think that when you have found a best friend in somebody, I just felt pretty solid in that foundation of friendship that we had built. When it came to young marriage, I never necessarily thought that, I'm going to get married young, like that's what is for me. But then I met Kaelin and he was very upfront about wanting to get married young. And I think after I had met him and he showed me his desires, I think that God gave me the desire to get married young as well and not put it off. And as we inched closer and closer to that marriage mark, I mean, the desire was like, I could not hide away from it. I could not shy away from it, especially knowing that my parents did not want me to get married young. They had not had a good experience with young marriage. And so I had the doubts of, if I get married young, I run the risk of having a marriage like theirs. And that really did scare me. But I also felt like, you know what, we have a solid thing, and I feel the desire so strongly that we need to get married, like literally tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, my dad's a pastor, and my mom and my dad got married at a young age under different circumstances, but I mean, they were young nonetheless. And Kyrah's parents, as she mentioned, were also married young. So the idea of being married young wasn't something that was foreign to us. In fact, it was something that we were surrounded by, especially being in a small town. And you guys know, even within Christian culture, they encourage that. So, it's something that got placed on my heart and God convicted me after I had been in some of these relationships when I was around 14 years old. So you can't really call them relationships as much as they were just exploring sexuality and just doing things I'd have no business doing. But you know what they say about the pastor's kids? They be the worst ones. So God convicted my heart at that age. And at the time, he was basically I felt like he was leading me to just not be dating because I had no business doing it. People date for different reasons. And one of the worst ones is just doing it for fun. And that's what I was doing. I was just trying to get around girls and brag to my homeboys about what we had done and the things that we were going to do. And we'd all go around the locker room and do that whole thing, which is pretty toxic. And I'm so glad that God saved me from that. But after that time period is when I had encountered Kyrah about a year after that. And I had to let her know, it's very common, I would say, for the Christian women to understand their value and to be told that their body is a temple and to be saving themselves for, their future husband. But at the time, again, the boys, we were just doing whatever we were doing and talking about it. But when God convicted my heart, he gave me the desires to do that as well. So I kind of let her know in what we call our intentions talk, what my intentions were and kind of the way that I carried myself. And just let her know, hey, this might not be for you, but if it is, then maybe we could grow this friendship and create a foundation for what could be an eventual marriage. But if it's not, no pressure, but I got to keep going. And, fortunately for me, Kyrah was on that same wavelength, and we ended up being friends for about a year. No intimacy, no hugging, no kissing, just trying to rekindle what we had in 7th grade because this was about 4 years after. And we had, dated for about 3 years. And then felt called again to that young marriage, tried to do it at 18, didn't have the finances or anything to do that. And then about a year later, YouTube had popped off, and I feel like God gave us the provision to see through what he had placed in our heart, which was to get married. And that's exactly what we did. Didn't waste no time.
I love the fact that you all are sharing your story because hopefully people that are listening, even if they have children your age, they can have these conversations with their children, and I love how you guys sound very mature, especially for a 19-year-old at the time. But I'm sure that it did not come without its obstacles and struggles as well, too. In the early years, you guys have been married for almost 5 years, so it's still kind of early, but I'm sure that you guys have learned some lessons along the way. So what are some things that maybe you all had to overcome or had to learn to grow together in to literally make this marriage successful?
Yeah, especially like that first year. We were watching a video and you all were reflecting on, I think, 4 years of marriage. Yeah. And you asked, what was your toughest year? And I think Kyrah said it was year number one. So what did you all learn as you guys began this journey?
Year number one, oh man, I can go back to that year mentally and think, I don't even know how I got through that because I felt like it was not going to last. Like there was no way it was going to work. And that wasn't necessarily because of Kaelin, but it was because of my own mindset, which there's a lot of things you don't know about your spouse until you get married and move in together. But there's also a lot you don't know about yourself until you get married and move in with another person. And they are there to witness all of your deepest insecurities, all of your weird quirks, all of the things that are like quote unquote wrong with you. And it's very hard to be vulnerable in that way. We were married, but I hadn't had a boyfriend before Kaelin, and so it was all still very new to me, especially living with a man and having to share a space. It just all kind of freaked me out a little bit, going from a household of 6 and like very family oriented, always doing everything with my family, to it just being me and Kaelin. It just felt very lonely and quiet, and I just felt like I had no direction. And I think the one thing I struggled with the most was honestly just generational curses of you are not going to have a successful marriage. Men cannot be trusted. Men are always going to stab you in the back. And those were the things that were said about Kaelin before we had even gotten married. And so our first year of marriage was very tough because anytime we got into any kind of altercation, I was like, well, there it is. There is everyone was saying our marriage was not going to last and I should have never done this. And here it is actually becoming true. And it was embarrassing. And it was something I didn't even talk to Kaelin about for a really long time. And he would always try to pry it out of me. What's going on? What's wrong with you? And I just could not fathom saying the words out loud. And then when we did finally have that conversation, I remember realizing my marriage does not have to be like anybody else's. What I am called to is not what my mom was called to or any other woman. And if I want to have a successful, holy marriage, I can have that. The Bible says it. I can have that. And I really needed to just shed all of those layers of believing what everybody else believed for me. And I just needed to believe what God had for me.
Man, good stuff.
Yeah.
And, you know, while all this is going on, y'all are blowing up on YouTube.
Like blowing up.
Like y'all got almost 2 million subscribers. So you all have built a business. You all are building a marriage. You all were building a business. And then you all started building a family all at the same time. That's a lot of balls to juggle all at once. How was it navigating all of this new responsibility, right? Being a husband, being a wife. Now you have people who look up to you on YouTube. They're coming to you every week for your content. And then soon thereafter, you turn into parents. Talk about all of these things happening to you guys, for you guys at the same time, and how you navigated the ups and downs of it all. And what advice you would give to others in similar situations.
We definitely dropped a few balls. Maybe not even just a few. Maybe we dropped all of them at some point in time.
It was probably me. You were such a hard worker.
Hardworking, but you know, you can become a workaholic, and a lot of times for men especially, we can put our head down and grind while we're neglecting all the other things that we're supposed to be, you know, stewarding well. And for me, that was our relationship. For me, that was being a young husband and not really being as empathetic as I could be, not being as as affectionate as I could be, and just really not being the leader that I know that God had called me to be. And in so many ways, I overcompensated with having this kind of controlling mindset, not being like dominating over Kyrah, but just trying to control situations like, oh, okay, I know my YouTube editorial calendar. I know what videos are going to do well. Okay, boom, we're going to do this with our business. We're going to pivot there. We're going to invest here. And everything was working. I mean, we've been in a bull market, so our investments were doing great. And I just felt like I had it all together. And a lot of this had gone unchecked in this mindset from the arrogance that I had as a teen, you know. In some ways, and in more ways probably than not, God had convicted my heart at a young age to have that type of intention talk with Kyrah. But a lot of that was pride and arrogance and me feeling like I had it all together, and me being ambitious and wanting to do back then what I'm currently doing now, and feeling like I needed to project this type of authority and me having it all together in order so that God can use me and so that I could qualify myself. But this stuff all kind of reached a head after the things I wanted as a teenager started to happen. And I'm like, okay, you know, I finally got it. I got married young. I got this YouTube business that finally took off after all these years. We got money in the bank. Our investments are performing, and everything was falling apart. And I'll start with our audience. We had done a type of video where we started off on YouTube, and it was all altruistic. We're speaking to this audience of people that are our age, and we're talking about things that are productive and helpful, and we're all growing through life together. Then Kyrah and I pivoted, and really is more so my idea. We pivoted to do this type of sensational content that really brought in tons and tons and millions of views, and we gained millions of subscribers, but they were just views. And the difference between views and an audience is there's a big chasm there. So there were these people that were there for the sensational content that we brought them. And the sensational content that we brought them wasn't really reflective of who we were. It wasn't reflective of our beliefs and our personality. And in so many ways, even though it wasn't reflective, people believed what they saw with their own eyes. So perception is reality. And I think that's the worst place that we could get to as a Christian if we're faking who we are. You know, God has called us to be set apart and to be who we are. But if we're trying to blend in, people are going to think we're exactly like them. And that's exactly what Kyrah and I were doing. And it was corroborated by this success. And I thought, okay, God must be blessing us because he's given us all this attention. This is all working, until it wasn't. And that first year of marriage hit, and Kyrah and I are having our internal issues while we're trying to remain authentic and vulnerable, and sometimes way more vulnerable than we should be. And especially as YouTube creators who are documenting our life, there's a really big difference between being authentic and vulnerable, and whether we want to reveal this or present that. And Kyrah and I, and too many times, I'd say, strayed into the vulnerability, if you wanted to speak on that.
Yeah, especially after deciding to have kids. I mean, during the time when we're popping off, I mean, it was like pulling teeth trying to get me to get up out of bed and work, because I was just in such a low place. I didn't know how to communicate well. I didn't even really know why I was feeling the way that I was feeling. And this is all leading up to that conversation we had where I just kind of laid it all out to Kaelin and was like, I can't do this anymore if we don't fix whatever the issue is. And so during that time, I just was not getting out of bed. I was really not working, or I would get up, get ready to do a video, do the video, and then get right back in bed. And Kaelin was like literally carrying us, carrying our career, trying to keep it going. And after that, I mean, I just didn't really find any identity or any fulfillment from YouTube. It wasn't even my idea to do YouTube. I just kind of like hopped on and went along with it and ended up really liking it, but it still wasn't what I felt. I didn't really feel any fulfillment from that. And so that's when we started having the conversation of, let's start a family, let's start having kids. And I feel like that was really the turning point for me, because one, it instant fulfillment, and it's actually a God-given fulfillment in becoming a mother, and I just took so much pride in that, and I really saw like my God-given, I guess, like talents or calling in that moment of becoming a mother. It just felt so natural to me. And then after that, and then we then after that, we ended up moving into a new house, and we had Carter there, and we basically started daily vlogging all of that, and it was hard. Like, even if you go back and watch those videos, I mean, I was struggling becoming a mom, and actually having a baby in my arms is much different than being pregnant with a baby. And we shared, I would say overshared a lot in those first few months. And it was just really, really hard.
Yeah. So to answer your question, I'm glad that you even shared that, because that's like what's going on her side. But on my side, I'm, overcompensating, just trying to make more money. I feel like God is blessing us, and we must be doing the right thing because we have all this money coming in from all these views that we're getting. We have this audience that we're leading. And again, boom, just like how it was when I was 16, God convicted my heart. And a lot of the times, and this may resonate with some of the audience, we know what we're supposed to be doing. Like, God placed that desire in our heart or in the back of our head, and it's that proverbial rock in our shoe as we're walking down the highway. And I knew what I was supposed to be doing, but I was just ignoring it because what I really was experiencing was greed. What I really wanted was the attention. What I really wanted was the recognition. So we keep doing these videos. We're running these numbers up. We're getting millions of views. We're making tens of thousands of dollars a month. We drop out of school because it's kind of hard to stay in there when you're just like, okay, you're learning about marketing, but you're like literally doing it. So it all comes to a head when, like I said, God convicted our heart, and we said, we can't do this anymore. We're not these people that we're portraying ourselves to be. And we made this declaration video to, I think we had just hit 1 million subscribers. We told them, hey, we're not making this type of content anymore. This was never really what we were supposed to do, and it's not representative of who we are or where we're going. So on this day is when it ends. And I'd like to say that on that day is when it actually ended, but a few days after that, we had uploaded similar kinds of content, when God has told you to do this and you don't do it, and you're just like, okay, finally I'm going to stop. And then you kind of do it a little bit more, and then you finally stop. That's kind of what happened with us. And it was around the time, again, that we finally had our son. And I was trying to, make it work, because the content that we were doing, it was working, and then we finally stop. So you stop doing what's working, the money is kind of getting a little iffy. And I was like, oh man. So the money that we were making was starting to dwindle down. I'm like, this is not the provision that God had for me. This is not the life I was supposed to live. I need to go back to doing that, but can't go back. So I'm like, okay, God, if this is really what you called us to do, I mean, you got to make it make sense, like literally and figuratively, because what I'm seeing is not right. And around that time was when we realized, okay, the sensational content that we were doing, although it gets a lot of views, it's really the shock value. It's sensational for a reason. It's kind of hard to monetize beyond the attention that you're monetizing in that moment. But when we pivoted and we started going back to the type of content that we had before, we had realized even within the views we were getting, we had a lot of them dropped off, but we created an audience of people that was larger than we had before, that was interested in this lifestyle type of content, this growing in faith, money, relationships, and buying into that journey. So what we found, though, was that companies were willing to sponsor that type of content, that they were willing to get us to endorse their products because the type of trust that we had, even, walking away from something that was profitable, we have a different buy-in with our audience. So ironically, even with less views and I guess more dead subscribers, we were able to make more money by being who we were. So I feel like that was God's way of saying, it may not look like you're going to, make it from your perspective, but I see further than you. I know the plans that I have for you. So I'm so glad that had worked out, but still I had that greed in me. We had just had our son, and on YouTube, the more videos that you upload, the more money that you can make. So, as soon as we had him, I realized, okay, this type of content is getting a lot of views and we don't even have to sell out for it. Let me just run these numbers up too. So we started uploading every single day. And the money was great, but we were selling ourselves out and we were sacrificing our privacy. And that's one of the main things that you need when you're young, married, especially within that first year. So it was just a whole world of mess that we were, like you said, juggling these balls, and I'm dropping them at different times. And finally, it just hits rock bottom when we had some family drama situation that reared its ugly head and made its way online.
Love reading, but wish you had more time to get into your favorite books? What if you could use the time you already have and listen to the books you already love? Well, now you can with Audible. With Audible books, you can be inspired, entertained, and educated anywhere, anytime. Choose from the bestsellers in self-development, business, nonfiction, and more. So what are you waiting for? Your first 30 days are free. Visit hisandhermoney.com/audible to get started today. That's hisandhermoney.com/audible.
I say that's a big part of the story too, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was this drama from in-laws, and y'all had to fight it out, or deal with it transparently, publicly. A lot of people have in-law drama that they deal with privately. Mm-hmm. What is your advice? Because y'all had to handle it, and you had to handle it publicly. So, what you would like to share, and then what lesson would you give to those who may be in a struggle trying to get through whatever drama's coming from the in-laws?
And the lessons learned from it, because everything we go through, there's a lesson that comes out of it.
Yeah, I'd love to say, we don't deserve this and this should have never happened. But, this is the bed that we made, so we lay in it. We decided that, part of our job and our career was going to be sharing our life online. So it's not fair for us to be like, hey, we only want to share the good parts when it works out for us and we can control the narrative and we can look all good. But I feel like God was teaching us a lesson, and not that he, just let this happen or made this happen, but in allowing it to happen, it revealed that, people are going through this, and it's not just us. So, so some stuff happened in our family that we wanted to keep private, and it ends up public. And since it ended up public, we tried to avoid it and not address it. And then it ends up becoming such a big thing that eventually we have to. And if you want to, share on that, I guess.
Yeah, I would say my biggest piece of advice is try not to have it go public if you can, because it just makes it a lot harder, and you feel like you can't speak vulnerably. You feel like you can't speak vulnerably because you don't know what's being recorded or what's going to be shared. And although I would say that anything I say in private could be said publicly, but that doesn't mean that it should, So I think that was the hardest part. And even when we did go public and kind of give our statement, it wasn't like, it was just this one altercation with my family that had happened, but this is actually a story that's still going on even now, 3 years later. And so there's so many things that the public will never be able to get to see, and stories that they will never hear, at least not out of my mouth. And so it just makes it even harder because people aren't able to decipher what is the truth and what is not, even when we try to come out and clear our names and kind of settle the story. there were still things after that ended up coming out. There were still things after that ended up coming out. And I mean, it's just hard. It's a very sad situation. And I did not want it to be public. And I think that the biggest lesson I probably learned is that I can't control what anybody else does or what anybody else says or how they react to me, but I can control the things that I say and the things that I do. And so I try to keep my composure throughout the whole thing. And I think that people who have never had family drama or, you know, a situation like that, they don't understand how actually hard it is to go through and how hurtful a relationship like that falling apart is.
Yeah, for sure.
And how did y'all handle that internally? You know, we know how you made public statements and tried to control the narrative as much as you could. But, you know, in those private moments when there's no cameras, no mics, and you all were dealing with all the emotions coming with what was going on, how did y'all as a couple kind of, you know, batten down the hatches and secure yourselves within yourselves?
I feel like a lot of that fell on me, actually, because I was like literally best friends with my mom. And it was not really a mother-daughter relationship. It was like we were literally friends. So she would pour her heart out to me. I would do the same with her. And so as this relationship is kind of crumbling, I was not ready to let it go. I was like, it doesn't matter what she says about you, talking about Kaelin, doesn't matter what she says about me. I cannot leave this relationship. I need it. Like I need my mom. And it was so hard because it just made me think I can't really be friends with somebody who does not even support my marriage, does not want it to work out, actually wants me to leave my husband and go back home and take a million steps backwards. And I realized I have to let it go if it's not going to benefit me. With nobody else in my life would I allow a friendship like that into my life, ever. Somebody that is not for me, somebody that's not for the things that God has for me, why would I let that into my life? I would not. So I can't really make an exception for anybody, even if it's family. And that was really hard. And I held on for as long as I could until it just got so bad and there were so many things said and it just became hurtful to me to a place where I felt like I couldn't even dig myself out of it. I'm crying every day. I'm on the phone and there's just so much anxiety that takes over me because I'm just hearing all these awful things about myself, about my husband, about my family. And it just made it so hard to try to push through and hold on to that relationship that just was not good for me.
Yep. So I would say the main thing or the main lesson that we learned there, this is probably preaching to the choir for, especially to you guys for as long as you've been married, but it's definitely something that we've learned within the past 3 years is if you're not for my spouse, like we are one, you know, the Bible says you leave and cleave. And we were in that, we really left, but we're still learning how to cleave stage. And it's just so foreign to us to, okay, anybody who is against my spouse, anybody who isn't for my spouse, anybody who's talking bad about my spouse is also talking bad and isn't for me. Right. And that's kind of hard when you get with your family because it's like they say blood is thicker than water. And as much as we love our spouse, it's still somebody that you met later on. And, you know, you've grown up your entire life with your family. So how could you leave them? But I mean, that's what we're supposed to do, especially if we want to have these strong marriages. So, I mean, that's what we had to do. We had to say, and this has happened on both sides, not even just her side of the family, but also mine. That leaving and cleaving, it doesn't discriminate. It goes both ways. So I would say that's the best lesson that we learned in our young marriage, early marriage, and in these early years is we have to be for each other. I have to be going to bat for Kyrah. She has to be going back to me. When we leave our home, we're not talking bad about each other. You'll never hear a bad word from my mouth about Kyrah and vice versa. Because those things, they always kind of catch up. And I would say that's the biggest lesson is just being on the same team and rooting for each other and fighting for each other.
How has your faith in God been the anchor? I mean, in your family, your marriage, your business, everything that you all do, because the type of blows that life dealt you guys, some people would have just quit.
Early.
They would have quit. Like, no YouTube. Now you all just launched a podcast. They've just been like, maybe we should separate. Like, there are people that legit give up. Mm-hmm. What has kept you all, and I would assume that it's your faith in God, kept you guys going, gave you that push to not say no, we're not going to end this. We're going to keep growing. We're going to keep moving.
It's just bigger than us. And I would say that you're right, that it is our faith in God that acts as that rudder and leads and guides us, because I'm not qualified by myself. And even though I thought so before, especially when I was younger, I've just learned through the years, through life experience, that I ain't got it all together. I don't look like I'm gonna have it all together soon. I may never. And I know my wife, and she's a lot better than me, but we just not perfect. So how can we be exemplary to our generation while not having it all together? Because I don't want to be a hypocrite. Well, the only way to do that is to be led by the Spirit, to keep in step with the Spirit, and to point people to Him. He deserves all the glory, all the honor, and all the praise. And, absent of God in our life, we couldn't do this. We would have burnt out. But, there's a difference between us just wanting to do something because, it's profitable and all the reasons that we did it before, and us being called to do it. Like, this is what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be exemplary to our generation, a life of young people that are wholly surrendered to Him and just trying to figure out how to live as a Christian, a young Christian in this world as it's ever changing. And I think that's what our calling is to do. And whether that be on YouTube, whether that be through podcasting, I think we're called to do that through whatever medium that we possibly can, through the gifts and the talents that He's given us, whatever place we're going to be the most effective in communicating that's where we're supposed to be. And that's the message that we're supposed to be sharing.
I think that also if any of those trials and things had happened maybe a year earlier, like maybe the first few months of our marriage, maybe things would have played out differently as far as me thinking I can't abandon my family. I need to go back and be with them, and I can't be with you anymore. But I think that God had taught me so many lessons already by the end of our first year of marriage and going into the second, that I was like, there really is no going back for me. When you know better, you do better. And so I was like, yeah, I'm not going to be fooled into all of these phrases and things people are saying about my marriage. I already know what's true for me. And I already know that I am in step with the Holy Spirit. And I don't feel and I don't think any of these things that people are saying about us.
What's your advice on navigating the ups and downs of finances? Because you all talked about, you wanted to get married at 18, didn't have it. 19, you had it. Pivot on the content, money went down, regrouped, and went back up. So there's lots of ups and downs with your finances. What type of conversations were you all having? What type of plans were you all making to navigate those choppy waters?
Yeah, I would say the most important thing for us was to realize our relationship with money. What money is and what it isn't. And I know for sure it ain't my money. It's God's money. And that's the first thing that we needed to realize, that we are just stewards over what God has entrusted to us. So that would have helped. If I would have known that sooner, it would have helped eliminate a lot of the greed that I was experiencing. And it also would have changed a lot of the way that we were investing. At first, as soon as we would get money, we're just blowing it. We're buying stuff. We're doing whatever. But as stewards of God's resources, we approach it by saying, okay, God has given us this much. Okay, this is what we're going to be giving. Okay, this is what we're going to be investing. This is what's for us. This is what's for our future. And this is what's for everybody else. So a lot of help with that we had was Dave Ramsey. Dave Ramsey, I think, single-handedly convinced me to not go into private school debt for college. And because of that, I actually had some money left over from scholarships that we were going to use to get married. And that's one of the reasons that we wanted to get married at 18, because we had that little extra lump sum, except that wasn't cash flow. That was money that we were going to have to take out of savings to be living, which is why we did it. But after we started getting this cash flow coming in, we had to develop a good relationship with money, and we had to start off from square one. Like I said, understand that we're stewards of it, and then understanding what the Bible says about it. Like, what are these biblical principles? And one of the first things or second things that we learned after that we are stewards of this money is that the borrower is slave to the lender. And Kyrah and I were on the same page there. I'd say I've always been kind of this budgeter finance person, which is probably where a lot of my greed came from. But for Kyrah, I would say that you were probably more free-spirited. Mm-hmm. So in our early marriage, we had to get on the same page there because, two heads, that's a monster. So we needed to, be lockstep, cleave, locked together, same mission, same goal. So we went through Financial Peace University, and I was thinking I was taking Kyrah there, and she would be gamed up and learn all the things that I had believed. But what really happened was I ended up transformed in the process, trying to be this control freak and, trying to limit the where our money is going, and just kind of her feeling like, man, I can't do nothing fun. So we end up on the same page from that process. And then boom, we ran into you guys, and a lot of the money that we had saved from the early success we had on YouTube, we used to pay off our house and be out of debt. And we've been out of debt ever since that point. That was our last, big debt that we had. And we've just seen, the wisdom of God play out in our life and the fruit that's come out of that. So the Bible is, it don't miss. It's not lying. Like it's true. You really do get to experience freedom when you're not beholden to anyone. So
I want to know, how does it feel living in a paid off home?
Well, we moved to Texas just before the pandemic last year. So right now we're in an apartment, which is probably why our doors are so thin, if you can hear our crazy kids. But we rented that house out. And I guess, we've lived in a paid off home for about a year. And that was crazy. Like, to wake up and just not have to worry about anything. Mm-hmm. I feel like it allows you to be led in the direction that you actually should be going. And I think it makes you less compromising because you have walk away power.
Yes.
Like you don't have to do things that you feel like you would have wanted or that you would have succumbed to had you had these expenses over your head. But now that we're in an apartment, we were actually renting that house out, and the mortgage was still paid off. So it allowed us to have even more cash flow coming in. And that's been pretty cool too.
Yeah, I feel like after paying off our house, especially as a new young mom, it really relieved that pressure of, every day I have to get up and just work so that we can pay for this house and our lifestyle. And it allowed me kind of to be more of like a stay-at-home mom, which I really liked, especially having newborns at home and just focusing on having kids and this like new season of life that I was in.
So what prompted the move? You all just left everything that you knew. You said you all are from a small town, and now y'all went to a big old city. Mm-hmm. So what prompted the move and how things been going?
It kind of plays off of the question that you just asked, which is after we paid off our house, we got to a really weird place. And I was not expecting, I just kind of feel like we're just spilling all our beans. But this story arc of our life, it starts off, I'm super arrogant, or I should say my life, super arrogant, feel like I got it all together. Everything falls apart, find God. And then I got to this place where, everything was kind of peachy keen and the house is paid off. I'm not worrying like I used to. And as a result, I feel like I don't need God in the same way that I used to. So I feel like I got to a pretty bad place in my faith where I'm like, man, I kind of got all together. The Bible talks about it's hard for a rich man to get to heaven because you feel like you don't need God. And that's exactly how I felt, especially being in our small town where our expenses were pretty predictable and they were low because it is a small town, and, the house is paid off, and we made our investments, and our investments are paying for our lifestyle. And it was just kind of weird. And especially because Kyrah and I didn't go off away for school. It just kind of felt like the life that we were beginning to live was the same life that my siblings had lived and the same life that my parents had lived and their parents before them. And we just felt like, you know what, there's got to be more out there for us. There's got to be this exposure that we can get outside of our hometown that would lead to the expansion that we're expectant for in our life. And that's what we did. We had visited Dallas, Texas in 2019, went back home for about 6 months and was like, man, we got to do it. If we're going to do it, hey, it's about to be 2020. Let's do it. So February 2020, we pick up everything. We move here. We actually moved to a place we had never been. And
with
boom,
a 2-month-old.
A few weeks later, the pandemic. So we really got to know each other way more during that time. And I know that resonates with a lot of other people. But Texas has been everything that we thought it would be. This move has been everything that we thought it would be. It's been challenging. It's forced us to grow in a lot of ways that we never even thought that we wanted to or needed to or expected to. But, now we just rely on God, and that's just been the next evolution in our faith walk, just trusting in him that, he's going to continue leading and guiding us and growing us.
Now, you all unpack a lot of these life lessons in your new book. So tell everybody where they can pick up a copy and give them the name one more time so everybody can go out and get it.
Yes, our book is This Kind of Love. It releases July 13th in stores and online, but you could also pre-order it anywhere that you can buy books. You could also get it on Audible, too, and we are the ones narrating it.
Nice. So what is to come for
What's next?
Kaelin and Kyrah? What's on the horizon?
I learned my lesson. Look, I'm going wherever the Lord leads me.
Well, we just started our podcast, so I really am looking forward to that and just for it to continue going and for weeks and weeks and years.
Yeah, we want to get to our, 7-year mark?
I
Wow.
know.
Wow. I need all the tips.
For sure.
Well,
for
tell
sure.
everybody the name of the podcast and also where they can find you
Yeah,
guys
how to stay in touch
online.
with you
Yep.
guys.
Yes, so our podcast is Growing Together with Kaelin and Kyrah, and you could find us on literally every social media, Kaelin and Kyrah, or just our names.
For sure. And we'll be sure to have links in the show notes. If you're listening to the podcast, if you're watching this on YouTube, look in the description box and you'll find the links there as well. Kaelin, Kyrah, man, thank
you
y'all for
guys.
sharing
Yes.
and being vulnerable
Very,
and letting
very. It's gonna
everybody
help
know
somebody.
inside your story so that they can make the necessary adjustments to their own story. Thank you for being willing to share and help everybody grow with you guys.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for having us. You guys asked amazing questions.
Yeah, it's been an honor. So I feel like I made it. I'm here. I feel like I made it.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Another fantastic
great.
episode. Man, that was
That's
super
going to
dope.
help somebody.
It's going to help a lot of people.
Seriously, they were very transparent, very vulnerable, and isn't that what our lives are meant to
it.
be? You know, we're meant to help somebody else to not make the same mistakes that
Yeah,
we made.
what Kaelin said was it's bigger than us.
It's bigger than us.
Like
That's
this marriage, this even the
That's
careers that we have, the people that we can affect, if we're in ministry,
Yep.
the way we handle our finances, everything we do is bigger than
Everything.
us
That's
because
right.
God has a much bigger agenda that isn't just stopping at us. He's using us to impact
And give him the
generations
glory.
and give
That's
him glory out of our lives. So we hope that you guys took those lessons away. We hope that you guys go pick up the book. It's linked in the show notes. It's
Yes.
linked under this video. Please go pick it up.
Yes.
It's got a lot of insight that can help you walk this and make it a practical tool to help you on your journey. Well, guys, we hope that you enjoyed this, and that's all we got for this time. Until next time, peace.
Bye, y'all.